Welcome, everyone. My name is Dr. Laura Cohen, and I'm the Executive Director of the Harriet and Kenneth Kupferberg Holocaust Center at Queensborough Community College at the City University of New York. Our mission is to use the lessons of the Holocaust to educate current and future generations about the ramifications of prejudice, racism, and stereotyping. Today's talk, The Holocaust by Bullets, features Dr. Eva Schaller from American Friends of Yahad in Unum, who will discuss the organization's investigations into the fate of the Jewish communities in the former Soviet Union, including a new interactive map that documents execution sites with archival documentation and witness interviews. This event is also connected to the KHC's newest virtual and in-person exhibition, The Concentration Camps, Inside the Nazi System of Incarceration and Genocide. The Kupferberg Holocaust Center in Bayside, New York, is situated on the traditional land of the Mantinecock people who continue to live here today. We offer gratitude and respect to all of the indigenous people of Turtle Island, past, present, and future, including the Lenape and Shinnecock peoples. What I just read is what we call a land acknowledgement. This is a statement recognizing that the land we all occupy in the course of our daily lives, including our schools, jobs, parks, and homes, as well as the names of towns and roads, was first inhabited by another group of people who were forcibly expelled and murdered. Today, we identify those crimes for what they are: mass atrocities and genocide. These horrors continue to have devastating political, social, psychological, economic, and environmental impact upon and within Native American and Indigenous communities. Our event today is co-sponsored by the Nancy and David Wolf Holocaust and Humanities Center, the Ray Walpole Institute for the Study of the Holocaust, Genocide, and Crimes Against Humanity at Western Washington University, the Gross Center for Holocaust and Genocide Studies at Ramapo College, the Center for Holocaust and Genocide Education at St. Elizabeth University, and the Center for the Study of Genocide and Human Rights at Rutgers University. One final housekeeping note, please be sure to submit your questions via the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. And now to kick things off, please join me in welcoming Dr. Eva Schaller, Senior Program Officer, Educator, and Education Coordinator at American Friends of Yahad in Unum. She designs, oversees, and conducts teacher seminars, lectures, and other educational events in the United States in coordination with the educational program of Yahad in Unum in Paris. She also designs and develops educational resources and activities for American teachers. Dr. Schaller has participated in Yahad in Unum's investigative work in Ukraine, Poland, and Latvia, and holds a PhD in humanities from the University of Torun, Poland. Dr. Schaller, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Laura, for this introduction. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning. Good morning, good afternoon. I always feel somehow obligated to explain myself and my accent, which is a mix of Polish and somehow French accent as well. I hope you will be fine. If not, I will be happy to clarify anything once the presentation is over. So the title of this presentation today is Mapping the Holocaust by Bullets, and our focus will be on the Holocaust by bullets exclusively. So we will be speaking about a Holocaust that happened outside the camps, essentially in the former Soviet Union, in many forests, fields, and ravines of the former Soviet Union that you will see with me today. Now, I would like to start this presentation with this map, which contains many interesting elements for us. So first of all, what you will see in this map, obviously, will be those blue dots here, which stand each of them for the 6 killing centers located in the Nazi-occupied Poland. You can also see those blue rectangles here, which stand for a few chosen concentration camps here, essentially in Germany. We can also see a few yellow stars, again, standing for a few ghettos in the Nazi-occupied Poland, but also in the former Soviet Union. And one more and especially interesting for us element in this map will be the movements of those 4 Einsatzgruppen, those special killing units, killing squads, which were sent right behind the Wehrmacht army into the Soviet territory after the invasion of the country by the Nazi Germany on June 22nd, 1941. Those 4 units the Einsatzgruppen. We will not have time to go very much into detail about their primary mission, about how this mission actually evolved over the summer of 1941. But the important thing for us to speak about today will be that those 4 units will become the main architects of the Holocaust by bullets, of the mass shootings of the Jewish, also of the Roma populations, essentially in the former Soviet Union, also partially in the eastern part of Poland. Now, if we take a look at this map, which is less nice graphically speaking than the previous nice, but which has the advantage of showing the countries under the control of the Einsatzgruppen. So as you can see, each of those Einsatzgruppen had its own specific path. The Einsatzgruppe A is going to start in eastern Poland, and they will go through the Baltic states that you can see here: Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia. The Einsatzgruppe B is going to start again in eastern Poland. They will go through the entire territory of Belarus. The Einsatzgruppe C is going to start here in southern Poland. They will go through northern and central Ukraine. The Einsatzgruppe D is going to start actually in Romania, and they will go then through Moldova and southern Ukraine. All of those units will then go even deeper into the Soviet territory in the very western part of today's Russia. Now, this entire territory, this operational territory of the Einsatzgruppen, this is where the Holocaust by bullets is going to happen. This is where those mass shootings that I mentioned of literally entire Jewish populations, including men, women, and children. This is where those mass shootings will be perpetrated. Now, if you take a look at this map, so this is our map, meaning Yahad in Unum map. If you take a look at this map, you can see all of those dots. Now, whether they are blue or red, the color doesn't really matter here. All of them, each dot stands for one killing site. Each dot stands for one Jewish community which was killed in Eastern Europe. In certain cases, this will be just one family. In many cases, we will speak about dozens of people. In many cases, we will speak about hundreds of people, and even about thousands of people. All of those red and blue dots that you can see here are located in the operational territory of the Einsatzgruppen, and all of them mark the places where the Holocaust by bullets was perpetrated. We have identified thus far, I usually forget about the numbers, we have identified thus far more than 3,000 killing sites in Poland and in the former Soviet Union. So these are the numbers as of today. Now, very briefly, just a few thoughts, a couple of information about a Holocaust by bullets. When we speak about a Holocaust by bullets, first of all, we speak once again about the mass shootings. The Jewish people are not going to be gathered in one killing center in a concentration camp. They will be killed usually very close to the towns, to the villages where they lived. Those mass shootings will be perpetrated once again, essentially in the former Soviet Union, and then as well in Eastern Poland. We speak here, when we speak about a Holocaust by bullets, again about 2 million Jewish victims who died mostly in those mass shootings, who also died in countless ghettos, very small ones sometimes, which were created in this enormous territory of the Soviet Union. This is 1/3 of the victims of the Holocaust. Speaking of the time frame, those mass shootings are going to take place between June 1941. They will start actually right after Operation Barbarossa. So the end of June 1941, we will see the first mass shootings. And so this is way before the killing centers are operational. This is before even the Wannsee Conference, and they will then continue along with the killing centers. They will end late spring, even early summer in certain cases of 1944. So we have a 3-year time frame for those mass shootings. The main perpetrators, now this is something that I would like to highlight, and the more I do those presentations, the more I want to highlight this fact. Usually when we speak about a Holocaust by bullets, I am under the impression that there is some kind of temptation to reduce this to Babi Yar, to Ukraine, and to the Einsatzgruppen. The Holocaust by bullets was not only Babi Yar, it wasn't only Ukraine, and these weren't only the Einsatzgruppen. The Einsatzgruppen, yes, they were those main architects in those mass shootings, but they received a lot of support, and we speak here about thousands of people involved in other German police units, different kinds of them, Waffen-SS as well in certain cases. The Wehrmacht army was supposed to provide logistical support to the Einsatzgruppen. This support was extremely important, and this is what the Wehrmacht army would do in most of the cases. The Einsatzgruppen also received a lot of support from the local police. Now, I just would like to share with you a few photos which document the Holocaust by bullets. I think these are, for me, these will be probably the most iconic ones. You will find many other of them. So what you can see here in this photo, for instance, this is Kamieniec-Podolski, Ukraine. This is the end of August 1941. And this is the mass shooting on more than 23,000 Jewish victims. What you can see in this photo is a very small part, actually, of a truly endless column of the Jewish victims walking from Kamieniec-Podolski to the killing site. Lubny, Ukraine. This is October 1941. We have many photos from Lubny, not of the mass killing itself, but many photos of the victims, and many photos of the Jewish people waiting, like here, at the gathering point before they are taken to the killing site. So this photograph was taken like probably a couple of hours before those people were killed. This mass grave, which was dug for the victims. This is very likely Minsk, Belarus. I do not have the precise date for this photo. Škėda in Latvia. This is December 1941. And what you will see in this photo, so this is a group of women, of the Jewish victims, standing actually at the edge of the pit. And what they can see on the other side is the Baltic Sea. The grave was actually on the beach. And so this photo was taken a couple of seconds before those women were killed. And this one, this is Dubăsari, Moldova, September 1941. And what you can see in this photo precisely is one of those mass shootings. This is what the Holocaust by bullets looked like, a very public crime, a crime perpetrated in broad daylight, and a very personal crime. Sometimes when we think about a Holocaust and we think about this industrialized way of killing people, which was used in the gas chambers, there's absolutely nothing industrialized about what happened in the former Soviet Union. This is a very personal crime. This is a face-to-face murder, basically, in which every perpetrator was able to see his victim, and every victim was able to see his or her perpetrator. Now, this is the map of those places that I just showed you. So as you can see, it goes from Škėda, Latvia, here, Dubăsari, Moldova is here. So even with those photos, you can see how much of this operational territory of the Einsatzgruppen we are able to cover. Once again, this is where the Holocaust by bullets was perpetrated. Now, speaking of Yahadi in Unum, and our organization, so the Yahad in Unum, which means together in one. This is a Paris-based organization which was founded by Father Patrick Debois in 2004. Patrick Debois is a French Catholic priest, and I'm sure his name is familiar to quite many of you. And the primary mission of the organization has always been to identify and to document those places, those killing sites where the Holocaust by bullets was perpetrated. And actually, our work is like a police investigation. It truly is investigative work, and I'm using this word investigation, investigative on purpose, and I will be using this word a lot in this presentation. So what those investigations look like? Each investigation actually has 3 stages. It has 3 steps. For each of them, what we will do first, and this is our step number 1, we will do research in the archives. So we will go for every single country, for every single region in the country, for every single town and village. We will go through all the available information that we have in different kinds of archives. So we speak about German archives here, Soviet archives, also Polish, Romanian, Moldovan, Lithuanian archives. We will also work with other primary sources, with wartime documents, with post-war documents, letters, memoirs, and so on and so forth. And we will collect information about those crimes that were perpetrated in the former Soviet Union from all of those sources. Now, based on the information that we can find in the archives, in other primary sources, we will establish maps like this one. This is just one region. This is the Vinnytsia region in Ukraine, that's central Ukraine. And this map was made based on the archives. So what you will see here, you will see all those locations in which, again, based on the archives, those mass crimes were perpetrated. You will see different colors to mark different victims. We have Jewish victims, we have Roma victims, we also have prisoners of war. We also have sometimes other groups of civilians. You will see the numbers. Again, those numbers come from the archives. And for every single location, Kalinivka, Nowa Proluka, Lipoviec, we will establish the list of the facts that we know about the victims, about the perpetrators, about what happened, and a list of the questions, the list of the facts that we do not know and that we should know in order for us to fully understand how the Holocaust happened on a level of just this one village, this one community. Now, once we have all of this, a team of usually 10 or 11 people will go to those countries. So we speak here about Ukraine, Poland, Belarus, Lithuania, Latvia, Moldova, Russia, and they will look for the eyewitnesses, for people who were children or teenagers at the time of the events, who are today in their 80s, in their 90s, and who saw the crime, who saw what happened, who saw either the entire crime, many of them were able to witness the entire mass shooting, or they saw a part of it. So we will look for them, and we will collect their testimonies. Now, usually, I am anticipating one of the questions that we usually get at this point of the presentation. Are people willing to talk? Yes. It's exceptional for someone to refuse to speak. Most of them, they want to share those stories to keep the memory of what happened alive. Many of them are aware that they are the only ones actually to still know what happened and to still know how this happened. And they feel this kind of urgency to share this with our team. So very briefly, who are those neighbors for us? We have different groups of neighbors. The labels do not always work so greatly. So we will have some neighbors, they will not fall into any of those categories, but very briefly, so we will have neighbors. These will be people who either lived very close to the place where the crime was perpetrated, or by different kind of circumstances, they just found themselves in the place where the crime was perpetrated, like Imants here. Now, Imants was 10 or 11 years old at the time of the events. He was picking berries with his friends in a forest. They heard gunshots, and they looked up and they just realized that there was mass killing taking place in the forest. They were so afraid that they stayed like frozen for the entire time in this forest, and even a couple of hours after the killing. This is how Emmons became a witness. We will then have the curious. Let's not forget that many of those witnesses, they were children, teenagers, and many of them say, we were curious. We just wanted to know what would happen. They would saw the column of the Jewish people. They would follow them just to know what is going to happen to them. And this is how they witnessed the killing in most of the cases. So Dmitro here, Emmons, he's from Latvia, Dmitro from Ukraine. He heard gunshots, and so he decided to climb the tree to see what was happening. This is how he witnessed with his friend as well the mass shooting of the Jewish women in his location. We then have the requisitioned people. So these will be the local people who were forced to perform different kinds of tasks for the perpetrators. These are now the collaborators. This is a long story to tell, but they truly were forced to dig the graves, to cover the graves, to collect the Jewish belongings, to transport the Jewish belongings, to sort them out, to collect the valuables, to cook for the perpetrators, and so on and so forth. Nina is one of those requisitioned people. She was 17 at the time of the events, and with a group of young people, they were forced to dig a pit. They were not told what for. They understood who the pit was for, because then they were requisitioned also to cover the pit. So this is, Nina will be our example for the requisitioned people. And then finally, we have the forced, like Serhi, and we will get back to Serhi. Serhi was 7 or 8 during the time of the events. The first will be those who were forced to watch. In certain locations, the Nazi would force the local population to watch the execution for a number of reasons. The main one was just to frighten the local population and to force them to cooperate with the Nazis. Again, these are those main groups of the witnesses that we have. These are just the labels, meaning, once again, they do not always work, and we do have witnesses who honestly do not fall into any of those categories. Now, once we have all the information collected from the archives, from the witnesses, from the field, because we also try to go to all of those places where the crime was perpetrated. The first thing, and this is the last step for this investigation, we will cross-reference those different sources, the archives with the testimonies between them, and we will try to put all of those pieces of information that we have together in order to establish again the full picture of the Holocaust at this very local level. Again, of one community, one town, one village. We will establish what we call the steps of the crime. Those mass shootings, they had, as we say, 5 steps usually, and you will see them: the arrest, the road, the undressing, the shooting, and the looting. So we are able to establish those steps, again, using the information from the archives and from the witnesses. And we will also be able to establish the topography of the crime itself. So oftentimes, again, with the witnesses, we will be able to walk through the places of the Jewish life and then of the Jewish death, from the place where they were gathered to the place where they were killed. So this is what the investigation looks like for every single location. You have a few numbers here. I will not go through them because we really don't have time for this, but you can see the number of the countries. The countries where we had the most, the highest number of the trips will be Ukraine, obviously, Poland, Belarus, also the Baltic states. This is the number of the eyewitness testimonies that we have collected thus far. Those investigations are still we still continue to do them. We have one team in Latvia currently and one team investigating in Poland. So we have more than 7,000, almost 7,500 eyewitness testimonies, and we have identified more than 3,000 execution sites thus far, as you can see here. Now, to show you very briefly, in like 5 minutes, how this investigation works in the archives and in the field, I would like to take you to Pokrabushta. So Pokrabushta, this is central Ukraine, as you can see here. So if we would like to see this on the map, so that's Ukraine. And I just included a few numbers here so you can see how many eyewitnesses we have interviewed in Ukraine thus far and how many killing sites have been identified in Ukraine. So this is going to be right here in this part of Ukraine. And then if you zoom in, I hope you already have the link to this map, but if you zoom in the location, this is what you will get, and you will see that we have 5 red dots in Pokrabushta, which means basically that we have been able, we as Jihad have been able to identify 5 different killing sites in Pokrabushta based on the archives and based on the eyewitness testimonies as well. Now, I would like to speak, so as you can see, a number of mass killings actually took place in Pokrabushta. I would like to see with you one of those mass killings, the most important one in which almost the entire Jewish community of Pokrabushta was killed, and this is this one. This is this killing. As you can see the number of the victims here, more than 1,700. So if we go to the Soviet archives, then if we go back to the German archives, and if we look for the information about this particular mass shooting that took place in Pokrabushta, this is the information that we will get from the archives. So we will learn from the archives when this mass shooting began. We have the precise date, October 18, 1941. We know from the archives that the Jewish people were rounded up in their houses and they were taken to the forest. And that's the information. That was a pine forest. That's the information that we will find in the Soviet and in the German archives. We will get the information about the trucks that were used to transport the Jewish people from the town to the killing site. This is something that we will find in the German archives. We will find in the Soviet archives the information about the victims. The Soviet archives specify that the victims were the men, women, and the children. In the German archives, we will find information which we cannot always find about the units directly involved in this mass shooting. So that was the Einsatzkommando 5 from the Einsatzgruppe C and the police battalion. They participated in this mass shooting. The Soviet archives also specify the way in which the victims were killed by a bullet in the back of their heads in most of the cases, and we will have this final information about the number of the victims killed in this particular mass shooting. So that's the information that we have from the archives. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more. The Soviet archives can be sometimes very specific and quite extensive. There are certain locations which are very well documented. Some of them are less documented, but this is pretty much everything that we have from the archives, which is not a lot for us to understand what truly happened in this location. Now, our team went to Pokrabushta And they were able to find those two witnesses, Serhiy, born in 1934, and Anton, born in 1925. Now we will work with Serhiy. Serhiy is the one who saw this mass killing, and you will see how he saw this, how he became the witness. So what I would like us to do now is to watch a brief excerpt from his testimony.
Там в колонії своїх однокласників
Я
євреїв.
коло них йшов.
Яких звали?
Ой Боже, Ізя, Льова, Едік. Я почти такого, я ці фамілії знав. Позабувався.
Гуляли, поки йшли там разом з ними?
Нам дозволялося все. Видно такого, щоб не було паніки.
Вова, Едік, вони теж носили ці зірочки?
Дітей не було.
Дітей
На
не було.
дітях не було.
Стадіону до того місця, де їх розстріляли, далеко?
Около 2 кілометрів. А може і більше. Десь 2,5 кілометри.
Наприклад, позаду колони, може, їхала підвода от з євреями, що не могли йти, може, старші
Я
люди?
цього не пам'ятаю. Ну, машини були.
Машини були?
Машини ззаді їхали. Спереді машини їхали і ззаді.
Грузові машини?
Так, грузові машини. Ну, і ці Гільдібран, там, чи Шуман, то вони
То на
на
легкових.
легкових, так.
Этот Шуман і Гільдібранд, вони попереду їхали чи позаду?
Попереду їхали.
Попереду.
Ззаді, видно, були машини теж з євреями. Як, може, ну, я знаю, що було кілька машин, критих під брезентами.
Крити під призовом.
Да.
І потім звернули до тої ями?
Так. Їх завернули, то машини ці стали, там було перекрито, і почали в цей яр їх супроводжувати. І, так, і зразу стріляли. Ні, вначалі роздягали, от, перед цією ямою. Дуже було страшно.
Євреї, потім українці, потім знову євреї. Коли ви підійшли до ями, то як вас
То нас,
розділили?
да, на брустві, і там поставали, щоб це бачили.
Вас поставляли всі українці збоку, а євреї всіх
На
разом?
возвишеності. А євреї туди супроводжували. Там такий був крик, як почали стріляти, що я сказав, що наші котрі жінки, такі старіші, то падали в обморок.
Їх загнали в ту яму, в той ярок, чи вони десь біля ями стояли і по групах їх туди заганяли?
Ні, також йшли і зразу стріляли. Один
Одразу в ярок заходили всі?
на тіла і там били. З автоматів стріляли. От, і поліцаї дуже звістували, свирепствували. От.
Чи що вони несли, вони з собою в яму забирали чи десь складали?
Кидала на купу і зразу поліція на машинах, ті, що машини стояли криті, туди.
Кидали на купу там, де роздягалися?
Да, погрузили і повезли.
І йшов аж тут до кінця на скат. От.
Ага.
І це було тут повністю, може і тут є люди, хто його знає. От.
Ну,
А це
всі
тут не
біля
було
вага.
нічого, саме там стояли населення, от, і тут їх розстрілювали.
І, ну,
Тако
не те,
заводили
тільки
цей яр
було.
і стріляли.
Приблизно де були?
А тут того.
Збоку.
Да.
Вище трошки.
Такого повністю тут народ стояв.
І де стояли?
Такого, тут того. Пішли, да. От.
А вони так потихеньку йшли собі?
Пішли туди, дійшли до кінця, і там йшли їх без стріляти, а сюди. Ці полягали, я не мов, хоч, а всіх підводили злом.
Ага.
Прямо по них, по трупах. Оце вже в 86-му році це зробили, загорожу. Це я вже потім красивий, назад років 5 чи 6.
So what you could see here, actually, this is a very brief excerpt, like it's not even 4 minutes up from his testimony. Those testimonies, they usually last about 2 hours. Some of them, it could be even 4, even 6 hours. It depends on how much a witness saw, how much he has to share with the team. But anyway, if you go even through this very brief excerpt, and then if you go through some other elements from Serhiy's testimony, the additional information that you will get from him, it's actually a lot. So we learned from Serhiy, for instance, that the Jewish population was gathered 3 days before the mass shooting. So the gathering started actually on October 15th, 1941. This is when the arrest starts, and the Jews will be gathered in a Jewish school by the local police. Now, on October 18th, also the non-Jewish population is told to come to the stadium. The stadium was next to this Jewish school, basically, and you will see this on the map. So we have October 18th, 1941, 10 a.m., says Serhiy. We have everybody in the same place. We have everybody from the town at this stadium, the Jews and the non-Jews all together. And Serhiy also, in a different part of his testimony, says that there was a district governor who came to speak with everybody and who said that the Jews are being taken to the ghetto in Vinnytsia. Now, Vinnytsia was very close to Pokrabushta. There was a big ghetto in Vinnytsia indeed. So this is what he says, and people started walking, Serhiy says. Everybody together again, the Jews, the non-Jews. Now, Serhiy says that he was just running with his Jewish friends and that they could basically do everything. So they walk to the killing site. Now, Serhiy mentions the trucks that we had in the German archives, but he says that the trucks were used probably to transport those who couldn't walk, so the people who were sick, elderly people. They arrive now to the killing site. And what happens at the killing site is that the Jews will be separated from the non-Jews. And the Jewish people were marked at the time already. So it was quite easy to distinguish them from the non-Jewish people. So the non-Jews will be put on a kind of a hill from which they will be forced to watch the execution. So this is one of those cases where the local non-Jewish population is forced to watch the killing, and the Jewish people will have to undress, they will have to leave their belongings. The undressing is happening systematically in those mass shootings. And then they will have to approach the pit, which was dug in advance, and they will be killed. Now, the belongings, Serhiy says, were taken away by the Germans. So basically, Serhiy is able to speak to us about all the 5 steps of the crime, as we say. And again, you will see those steps in every single of those mass shootings perpetrated in the former Soviet Union. So he was able to witness the arrest and the road and the undressing and the shooting. And he also has some information about the looting. The looting could happen after the shooting, but it could take place at every step of the crime, actually, starting from the arrest. So you can see how much of information he is able to add to whatever we are able to find in the archives. And this is just about one of those mass shootings that happened in Pokrabushta. What we were able to see with him as well, as I mentioned, and this is what we always try to do in all of those locations, to trace the Jewish life and to trace the Jewish death. So we were able to go with him to the place of the gathering. This is where the school was located, and this is where the stadium was, and you will see this on the map. We saw the road, and we obviously saw the killing site. So if you look at the map, the Jewish people were gathered here in the school. Stadium was right here, and then everybody walked through this road to this killing site. It was 1.5 miles approximately from the gathering point to the execution site. So again, as I mentioned, we will do this for every single of those locations that you can see here on the map. In order, again, that was a very small part of the investigation that I was able to share with you. It is much more complex and much more complete for every single of those locations. But this is, again, what helps us to understand the Holocaust at the level of the microhistory, actually, at the level of this one community, one village, but that helps you understand also the Holocaust by bullets at the level of macro history, how it happened in this entire territory, huge territory of the former Soviet Union. So this is our map once again. So Pokrabushta will be right here among those red dots. When you go to this map on our website, so just for you to know, the only difference between the blue and the red dots is that whenever you go to a blue dot, it is going to say online soon. Meaning that this location has been investigated, but the information has not been uploaded to the map yet. When you go to any of those red dots, it is going to open actually a file for you about the location. Well, first of all, when you go to those red dots and when you zoom in, so you will see those different locations with different numbers of killing sites. So for instance, Poltava, Ukraine, we see one red dot, meaning that there was just one killing site in Poltava. Vishki in Latvia, we have 2 killing sites, and then Motal in Belarus, we have 4 killing sites, and you can even see where they were located. So sometimes when we even take a look at the satellite view, we see that the killing site in Poltava was located right after the city. We can see that this one was in the forest. Sometimes we can clearly see a Jewish cemetery. So it's very easy in certain cases even to identify the location of the killing site and to understand why the killing site was in this place. Then when you click on the red dot, as I mentioned, it is going to open a file for you about the location. So you will see the information. So this is for Motal, for instance, in Belarus. So you will see the information about the number of the sites, the number of the victims, what those sites also were before they became the execution sites. You will find an excerpt from an eyewitness testimony, excerpts from the archives, Soviet, German, Polish for Poland, Moldovan for Moldova, Lithuanian sometimes for Lithuania. You will find a historical note about the town, what it was before the war, what was the percentage of the Jewish population, what was the life of the Jewish population in this village before the Holocaust happened. And I think that's an important part of our work as well, because we are sometimes so much focused on the Holocaust, on the death, that we sometimes forget there was a life before. And it's important to speak about this life. And I'm saying this even more after my trips, because when you go to all of those places and you speak with the witnesses and you can literally touch the emptiness, because you know that there was a community once, and this community was there sometimes for centuries, and it is lost forever. It's important to trace back the places also of the Jewish life. And then we have a summary of the Holocaust by bullet. So those steps, how the Holocaust happened in this particular community, in this particular location. And we will have always, for every single location, an excerpt from a video excerpt from an eyewitness testimony. We will have photographs whenever we can, archival photographs from before the war, also present day photographs of the witnesses of the killing sites as well. So I wanted to show you more, but we have basically no time. So I will go through this very quickly. But I just wanted to share this with you because once again, I feel that when we speak about the Holocaust by bullets, we might have this temptation to, again, reduce this to maybe Babi Yar, maybe Ukraine, and then the Einsatzgruppen, as we said. It was unfortunately much more than this. So what you can see here is Belarus, for instance. And again, I've included those numbers for you so you can see the number of the eyewitnesses and of the killing sites identified thus far. An example of a location here, Berezino in Belarus. You may want to check this out on the map. Very interesting location. This is a sketch that comes from the Soviet archives, for instance. There was a quite significant Jewish population in Berezino before the war, 1,500 people approximately. Some of them were able to flee before the war started. Most of them stayed. when the Nazis came, they created a small ghetto here in this Internationalnaya street. So the ghetto was here. And then at the end of January or the beginning of February 1942, they were all taken to the killing site, which was right here. It's a very, very short distance actually between this street and the town and the killing site. The Jews had to undress here and then they were taken here to be killed. Our team found a wonderful witness, Nina. Her father was requisitioned to dig the grave and she was able to see the execution from the windows of her house. This is how close it was. So this is what Internationalnaya Street looks today. This is where the ghetto was located. And this is the killing site. We have Poland. Again, with those numbers, as I said, we have one team investigating in Poland right now. And an example of the location that I wanted to give you, it's right here in this part of Poland, Siemnice. There were 3 rural properties in Siemnice before the war. All of them employed Jewish workers. At the beginning of October 1942, all the 3 owners of those properties were told to gather their Jewish workers in just one property. All of those people were killed, 15 to 17 Jewish victims. And this is what the killing site looks like today. Again, we had a wonderful witness, a beautiful, very emotional testimony that he gave about what happened in Siemnice. One last example of Lithuania. Again, you can see the numbers of the eyewitnesses and of the killing sites. And an example of one location, Anykščiai in Lithuania, great Jewish community before the war. And you can see how early all of them were killed. This is July 1941. It's just 1 month after the Nazi invasion of the Soviet Union. 1,500 Jewish victims. They were killed in a forest. This is what the place looks like today. And this witness, Julianus, he saw the column of the Jewish people going through this road to the killing site. Men were killed first, a month later, the women. And there was this small memorial that you can see here. So many other things that we could say about the Holocaust by bullets, about how it happened. And about how we do our work. But I just wanted to finish by showing you this photo, which I took in Ukraine on one of my first investigations that I joined in Ukraine. And you can see here in the middle, Nina. Nina was 90 years old when she gave her testimony, and she walked with us for an hour in this field that you can see here, looking for the mass grave of the Jewish people who were killed by the retreating units of the German and of the German army in 1944. And we could feel with her this, as I said, as I mentioned, this emergency, the sense of emergency, of urgency, of sharing the testimony, sharing the story to keep the memory of those victims alive. I've been just thinking recently when we have all of those commemorations of the Holocaust, we usually mention the victims of the camps. Those victims, 2 million people who died in those mass shootings, they truly still are in a way the forgotten victims. And I think it's important for us to complete the historical records of the Holocaust. That's an entire chapter that has been missing for a long time from Holocaust history, but it's also to bring back those victims to the collective memory and not to forget about them. So thank you so much. And any questions that you have, I think we still have a couple of minutes. I will be happy to answer them.
Eva, I'm stunned. I'm stunned on so many levels. And I think the first is the kind of courage that it takes for you to do this work personally and the teams of students and your colleagues. And that's a conversation I want to have, but we have actually many questions that have come up, and a lot of it comes up, and there's sort of like 3 different themes that are coming up. And one is the use of the map and being able to search, which we'll get back to in a second. the second focuses on justice and sort of more details of what happened. But I wanted to first ask you a question, and it comes up in Wendy Lauer's book, which someone has mentioned, The Ravine, which focuses on her investigation of what happened in one particular site at the moment of execution that is captured in a photograph. And one of the things that she speaks about is that in many cases, these kinds of photographs are the only documentation of victims. And I think I know the answer to this question, but were there any Jewish victims and or survivors that you have come across, and are they part of this initiative?
We do not have, so as you can imagine, we do not have survivors. And thank you for bringing this up. Actually, that's very interesting, because so we do have people who escaped before the Nazis came, or even when the Nazis were there, right before the mass killing, but we do not have people who are able to escape the actual mass shooting. That happened. We do have a few testimonies, not in our records, but there were a few testimonies that were collected after the war from those people. These are absolutely exceptional situations. And this is also why I think this is one of the reasons why the Holocaust Bible was so unknown for such a long time. I have personally a friend, his mother, while she is a survivor, she was able to escape. And for a very long time, she felt like she wasn't a Holocaust survivor because she didn't fit into this narrative of a survivor from a camp. So she was like, I'm not one of them. Yes, she is. It's just that it's a different chapter of the Holocaust.
Well, and I think that's also really significant because so much of even the memory of the camps comes from people who survived
Absolutely.
in occupied Poland.
Yeah.
So when we think about the narratives that are out there and how we're learning this, I think it's really significant what you said and what you ended on, which is that there are forgotten victims here, and that the work that you are doing is really rehumanizing them. But I think also you're rehumanizing the people, the witnesses, and allowing them to fulfill the sense of urgency that they have, but I think also process something. How is it like for you and the teams to be doing this work? I mean, this is incredible forensic work that you're doing. And there's also a tremendous amount of emotional labor and trauma that goes into it.
Yes, I can speak I will not speak for my colleagues. I can speak for myself. And again, my experience is slightly different because I am not always on those investigations. Like I joined them, but I am not in the investigative team itself. But for myself, I think it's like you have to learn in a way, I think personally, how to protect yourself. I remember one of my first days at work, which I spent crying, like literally from the very morning till the very end. And I told myself, either I find a way or I quit. So I think for each of us, the question is what's the way and how to find the way. And I think for each of us, it's also to know when you reach the point when you just need to stop and you need to pull back and to have a break before you come back to do this research, to do the study and to go before you go again into the testimonies.
I mean, I think it's really significant. I'm thinking about how controversial it is, even in places like in Bosnia and Herzegovina, where we know that there's mass graves and people refuse to speak about it, or there's tremendous community pressure. And even if we think about the mass graves of the Franco era in Spain, how those are still politicized. Where can people find more information? You have this amazing map with comprehensive information. If someone wanted to understand, are there any books that you recommend? Or information on the planning of this and sort of the other factual documentation that goes into this research?
There are many books, actually. There are many articles, which I will not be able to give you right now. I think more and more is published. about the Holocaust by bullets. So there was this entire gap that we had of no research, also because the Soviet archives were closed until 1990. So it's been just 30 years since we have access to those. I can certainly recommend the latest book written by Father Dubois himself, and which is like entirely based on the research that he has done. And the name of the book is In Broad Daylight. So that's, he wrote 2 books. Holocaust by Bullets is the first one. And he always says that the first book was just the answer to the question why we do this research. The second one, In Broad Daylight, is a much deeper analysis of the Holocaust by bullets and of the mechanism behind of how it was perpetrated. So this is what I can like recommend just like that right now. But there is more and more out there of really good work, scholarly work about the Holocaust by bullets.
Thank you. And I know we just put in the chat the book that you're referencing. And for those
Thank
of you
you so
interested,
much.
we will also send more information on the links that we're including. So I have a practical question. If there's someone whose family was killed in one of these locations, how do they get in touch with your organization?
So there is when you go to the map, there is like a generic address that you can use, and you can send a request. You can always go through me. So I'm happy. I mean, if you want to share my email address with anyone, I'm perfectly fine with that. And I can facilitate the contact with the Paris office. And then we have, especially one of my colleagues, she works on the map. She works with the archives, with the testimonies, and she will be able to see if we have any information at all. Sometimes we do have information about the victims, about people who died. Serhi, whom I showed in Pokrabushta, one of the victims listed at Yad Vashem was his friend. Now, the only thing we knew about him from the Yad Vashem records was that he died in Pokrabushta and that he died in 1941, but that was everything. Now, because Serhi knew him and because he was at the killing site, he was able to provide so much more information and even to share with us the photo of, I can't remember the name of his Jewish friend, but even he was able to share the photo of his friend with us. That's an exceptional situation. But we do have witnesses who remember the names. We do have sometimes lists of the victims in the Soviet archives. So this is always something that we can check out. But there is an email address on the map, and if not, I'm happy to help connect people with the right people in Paris as well.
Thank you. I have another question in terms of the kind of sort of preliminary research you do before you go into a community. Does the team look at other, for example, there's a question regarding British archives that may have ascertained the participation of different German units that were responsible. There's another question that also gets into justice for what took place. And I just, in terms of the scale, because I mean, the map is absolutely overwhelming, the places that you've been. So that must mean the amount of research and information you're coming across is also significant to sort through.
So as for other archives, I'm not quite sure if we use specifically British archives. I know that we use many other documents. It also depends on the location. So based on what the location is, actually, we might also use those, but I do not have like a ready answer to this question. I don't know. In terms of justice, some of the Nazi perpetrators were brought to justice, not that many, unfortunately. Some of them The first trial actually took place in 1943, if I'm not mistaken, in the Soviet Union specifically, and that was the trial made by the Soviets. Then, as for the local police, again, a few of those people who were involved, they were brought to justice, but again, just a few, and these numbers are actually quite small compared to the extent of the participation in certain cases.
Absolutely. And I know in Wendy Lauer's book, just to kind of, she goes through all of this and how much research went into this one photograph to be able, 50 years later to bring specific perpetrators to justice. But you're talking about thousands of sites and crime scenes.
Yeah, that's actually, we work, with my colleague Todd from the education department, we work on a couple of case studies, and we know how much work goes into one case study when we want to present this to teachers, because it's really going through all this extensive information that we now have coming from those different sources, and just to put all of this together, it's a very time-consuming task indeed.
So I have one last question, and it's really on use of the map. So are you able to search by location? Can you search by memorial?
Yes, you can search by location. So when you go, okay, very quickly, I don't know if we have time for this, but I will try to do this very quickly. I will just share my screen to show you how that works. So let me do this. So when you go to the map, this is what it looks like. Now you have this box here called village. So if you are interested in a specific location, you type the name here. Now, one piece of advice, please try all the possible spellings. Now, as my colleague always says, Wikipedia is your best friend here because they usually list all of the possible spellings with those locations in Eastern Europe, especially that they would belong sometimes to Poland, then to the Soviet Union, then to Ukraine. We have 4 or 5 names sometimes, or you just type the beginning of the name and you click on search to see what comes up. So you can do the search this way. If you cannot find a location, try to see on the map where it is and try simply to see if we have it, because maybe sometimes the name still doesn't match. You can do the search by the village, not by the memorial, but the village, yes. And then you can do this by the country, which sometimes is easier. So if you click on Estonia, for instance, it's going to show you sorry. We do not have that many locations in Estonia, but if you go, let's say, I don't know, Lithuania, it's gonna work better. Yeah, so you will see all of those locations. So you can search like this as well. And sometimes you can also search by like keywords. It doesn't really work that well, but this is what you may do. Also, like looking for a specific name might be helpful in certain cases.
Thank you. And it's so interesting just watching some other questions come in, and you've answered the question about searching by village and making sure you can come up with every conceivable spelling and also the country. And I just want to mention, as we're looking at this map, there are thousands of locations, and we have a survivor who's joined us on this call, and you've only really focused on 2 very few communities today. There's just not enough time in this presentation to talk about everything, but the scale and the scope and the horror of what transpired is just tremendous. And I just want to thank you for doing this work, for Father Dubois, and for all of your colleagues here and in Paris, for feeling compelled to help us understand the totality of what happened in the Holocaust, and to really bring to life and celebrate in many ways the Jewish life that existed throughout the former Soviet Union before it was, brutally, people were brutally exterminated, and to also be working with local residents and people who feel compelled to talk to you. I always talk about the gift of doing this work, and I'm just in awe of what you do. And it's absolutely tremendous. And I really want to thank you on behalf of the Kupferberg Holocaust Center and all of the co-sponsoring organizations today, and to thank you to everybody who stayed on the call and asked so amazing questions. This video is being recorded, so it will be available on our website soon. We will also make sure to send out a list of resources via the email. So all of that will be coming to you. I know this is new for many people. And Ava, again, thank you so much. We're really,
thank you so
really
much.
grateful.
Thank you for having me, for having us. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And stay safe and be well, everyone. We'll see you soon.